Welcome back to the Bulletin Desk, bringing you the latest news from around the world. On March 27, 2025, President Trump's administration stunned the global auto industry by announcing a sweeping 25% tariff on all imported light-duty vehicles and auto parts. The goal forced automakers to bring jobs and production back to the U.S., upending decades of global supply chains overnight. The move triggered immediate backlash from automakers, trade groups, and foreign governments, who warned of chaos and catastrophic economic fallout. With the Federal Reserve already cutting rates amid a weakening labor market, the timing of this trade shock was especially perilous. The industry now faced its greatest uncertainty in years, as companies scrambled to assess the impact of protectionist walls replacing open trade. The tariffs rolled out fast, first hitting imported vehicles in early April, catching many by surprise. The sudden implementation left little room for maneuvering, then auto parts in May, leaving automakers with almost no time to adapt. Factories had to scramble to find alternative suppliers or face production delays. This two-phase assault squeezed companies from both ends. Foreign-built cars became pricier, leading to sticker shock for consumers, and U.S.-assembled vehicles faced soaring costs due to imported parts. The increased expenses trickled down the supply chain, affecting even the smallest components. Wall Street's reaction was brutal. Shares of Ford, GM, and Stellantis plunged, erasing billions in value as investors feared the long-term impact on profitability, while Canadian suppliers like Magna also took a hit. The interconnected nature of the auto industry meant that no one was spared. In contrast, electric vehicle makers like Tesla and Rivian saw their stocks rise, as they were less reliant on imported parts and better positioned to adapt, as investors bet they'd weather the storm better than legacy automakers. The shift in investor sentiment highlighted a growing confidence in the future of electric vehicles. The market's verdict was clear. The tariffs threatened the old guard, putting immense pressure on traditional automakers to innovate or risk obsolescence, but could accelerate the shift to electric vehicles. The tariffs, while disruptive, might inadvertently speed up the transition to a more sustainable automotive future. The industry braced for a seismic realignment. Executives and analysts alike knew that the landscape of the auto industry was on the brink of a major transformation. The tariffs struck at the heart of the just-in-time manufacturing model, a system that has defined the North American auto industry for decades. This model relies on a seamless, uninterrupted flow of parts and materials, arriving at factories exactly when needed, no sooner, no later. It's this delicate choreography that keeps North American auto plants running efficiently, minimizing inventory costs and maximizing productivity. But it also means there's little room for error or delay. Even a brief disruption in cross-border parts flow could halt production within days, idling factories and workers. The entire system is so interconnected that a missing shipment of bolts or electronic chips can bring assembly lines to a standstill. Union leaders warned of a total shutdown if the supply chain broke down, emphasizing the risk to thousands of jobs and the livelihoods of entire communities built around these plants. Meanwhile, CEOs from Ford, GM, and Stellantis called the policy a recipe for chaos, not revival. They argued that the uncertainty would ripple through the industry, affecting suppliers, dealerships, and consumers alike. Rebuilding supply chains isn't quick or easy. It takes years, billions in investment, and new supplier relationships. Companies would need to find new partners, negotiate contracts, and build trust from scratch, all while trying to keep production moving. Modern cars rely on tens of thousands of parts from around the world. The tariffs threaten to unravel this intricate web overnight. Each component, from the smallest screw to advanced electronics, is sourced globally for quality and cost. Automakers face the impossible task of resourcing thousands of components on the fly. The complexity of the supply chain meant that a single missing part could delay an entire vehicle's production. The industry's finely tuned machine was suddenly on the verge of stalling, with every link in the chain under threat and the future of North American auto manufacturing hanging in the balance. For consumers, the biggest fear was sticker shock. Prices on new cars were already high, but now, uncertainty loomed over every dealership visit. Families and individuals alike found themselves anxiously scanning price tags, wondering just how much more they'd have to pay for the same vehicle they could have afforded just months before. The sense of unease was palpable, as buyers realized that the cost of owning a new car might soon be out of reach for many. Analysts warned that tariffs could add anywhere from $3,500 to $12,000 to the price of a new car, even for models assembled in the United States. This wasn't just a minor bump, These were increases that could change buying decisions for millions of Americans, forcing many to reconsider or delay their purchases altogether. At first, automakers tried to shield buyers from the full impact, absorbing much of the extra cost themselves. They hoped to keep showrooms busy and maintain sales momentum, even as their own expenses soared. But this strategy quickly drained billions from their bottom lines, putting immense pressure on profits and forcing tough decisions in boardrooms across the industry. Subtle price hikes crept in through higher destination fees and new surcharges, catching many buyers off guard when they finally sat down to sign the paperwork. The anxiety grew as news spread and more people realized that the real pain was yet to come. Social media buzzed with stories of rising costs and frustrated shoppers. Experts predicted that these higher prices would cool demand, leaving dealerships emptier and sales teams struggling to meet their targets. More buyers began to hold on to their old cars longer, or turn to the used market, hoping to avoid the brunt of the increases. Instead of boosting American jobs, as some had hoped, most economists warned that the tariffs would actually trigger layoffs, especially among suppliers and factory workers. Factory closures and production slowdowns rippled across the supply chain, affecting not just automakers but also the thousands of businesses that depend on them. Investment in new U.S. plants stalled, as companies put expansion plans on hold and waited for clarity on trade policy. Boardrooms filled with uncertainty, and executives hesitated to commit to new projects, worried that the risks now outweighed the potential rewards. The ripple effects of these policies threatened the entire automotive ecosystem, from the factory floor to the family driveway, leaving both consumers and markets bracing for an uncertain future. The auto industry united in rare opposition, with U.S. and foreign automakers alike calling the tariffs a catastrophic mistake. They argued the policy misunderstood the global nature of car manufacturing. Most American cars contain significant foreign content, and vice versa. The tariffs, they warned, would make U.S.-built cars less competitive, leading to lost sales and jobs. A confusing carve-out for Canadian-assembled vehicles only added bureaucracy and headaches, forcing automakers to trace every part's origin. Behind the scenes, legal teams challenged the tariffs' legality, fast-tracking the issue to the Supreme Court. The industry's last hope was that the courts might overturn what they saw as a disastrous executive action. The stakes, the future of American auto manufacturing. The tariffs' impact rippled far beyond boardrooms, threatening jobs and livelihoods in auto towns across the Midwest and South. While some union leaders initially hoped for job protection, most experts warned layoffs were imminent as production costs soared and demand fell. Communities built around auto plants faced the specter of shuttered factories and economic decline. The policy also sparked a diplomatic crisis with Canada, whose auto sector is deeply intertwined with America's. Canada's Prime Minister condemned the tariffs, announced billions in aid for Canadian automakers, and prepared retaliatory measures. Ironically, the instability made Canada a more attractive destination for future auto investment, especially in electric vehicles. The tariffs, meant to protect U.S. jobs, risked driving investment and jobs north of the border. Amid the turmoil, electric vehicle makers found unexpected opportunity. Investors bet that EV companies with different supply chains and less reliance on traditional parts would weather the tariffs better than legacy automakers. The policy threatened to drain resources from Ford and GM's own EV transitions, potentially slowing their progress and giving pure-play EV makers a head start. Canada's government seized the moment, offering incentives to attract EV and battery investments. The center of gravity for next-generation auto manufacturing began to shift away from the U.S. In trying to protect the old industry, the tariffs may have accelerated the rise of the new. By September 2025, the U.S. auto industry was at a crossroads, facing higher costs, uncertain demand, and the threat of production disruptions. Automakers juggled legal battles, lobbying efforts, and frantic supply chain overhauls, while the administration hinted at even broader tariffs. Workers and communities braced for layoffs as the promise of new jobs faded into anxiety and instability. The entire ecosystem, from manufacturers to dealerships to buyers, was forced to adapt to a new era of unpredictability. The tariffs, intended to strengthen the industry, instead weakened its finances and strained international partnerships. The coming months would determine whether the industry could survive the turmoil or face a prolonged downturn. The road ahead was anything but certain.